Hello and welcome to Sacred Mindshift Circle. I'm your host, Dahlia Deborah Donalds. Today our guest is Kathleen Flanagan, a deeply awakened voice and spiritual forerunner. Her journey through grief, awakening, and downloads from the divine have led her to deeply understand higher realms. She is the author of Dancing Souls, Merging Heaven and Earth, a deeply personal and spiritual revelatory book chronicling her multidimensional transformation. Welcome, Kathleen.
Thank you, Dahlia, for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Kathleen. And I decided to call you on because I was very interested in your perspective. I liked your whole story of the dark night of the soul. And I would love for you to really go into that and explain how you even began to journey through that spiritual awakening for the audience, just for them to have an idea of what it means.
Well, the dark night of the soul is that we all have deep, dark recesses in our that we hold in our bodies, that's in our unconscious, subconscious part of our mind. And when you start on the journey of awakening, the light comes into your body and you're in this honeymoon phase, is what I like to call it, because you're getting like all this information and life is good and spirit's talking to you. And you just think life couldn't get any better because it's like there's a remembrance that you have during that period of time that makes you think that you know that you're on the right path. Well, as that light keeps going further down, that's when you start going into the oh crap stuff. I didn't know that was there. You didn't know the darkness was there. You start seeing a bigger picture of what you've been carrying in your limiting beliefs, things you didn't understand as a child, traumas that you experienced, whatever it is. And to me, that's the dark night of the soul. Now, you can have various aspects of the dark night of the soul. And usually that is just when you're like very, very deep inside of yourself. You're very, very quiet. You're trying to find what's wrong. It's like, you know, there's something, but you can't find it. And when I went into this was the deepest place I had ever gone, to the depth that I went. And in that dark night of the soul journey of the book I was really facing a lot of demons that I had. I was in a spiritual warfare because I was living in a vortex at that time, and the dark side was after me. And I knew it was after me, and it had been following me my whole life. And I understood parts of it, but I didn't understand the full context until this story emerged, when Spirit told me of who I was, why I came here, why I was chosen. But I actually chose myself. They invited me and I said, oh, this sounds like fun. This was not fun. But, you know, as spiritual, as spiritual light beings, we don't know, because we don't know the density or remember the density when we're in our light. We don't know that. It's when we take this massive light of who we are and we put it in this little itty bitty teeny weeny body, as I call it, and we're trying to get our light out, and we are bigger than the spark that we generate through our body. And so when I came in and dealt with that, it was very challenging to face that, because I had to face that my mother never loved me, and I learned that at the time of her death. And I had to sit with that for 3 days. I really sat with that emotion of feeling that I really was alone. I was abandoned. Even though I knew I wasn't, there was that physical, mental thought that I had to overcome the human side of my psyche, of my thinking. Because at the same time I was facing that darkness, I was also seeing the magnificence of who I was. Like, I watched my wings unfurl. I watched me grow into this massive giant being. So when you're dealing with a dichotomy like that, it's like, how do you navigate it? Well, you just be with it. You sit there and you feel it, you experience it, and you witness it, and then you decide what's real for you. And watching me unfurl and get bigger was so much more powerful than my mother didn't love me, because I knew in that moment I was loved beyond loved beyond loved. I couldn't comprehend that amount of love that I experienced during that dark night of the soul. And And because I went as deep as I was, I have been forever free of probably 90% of this human side of myself. Yes, I still have stuff. Yes, my limiting beliefs come up, but I handle them so much differently. I'm not dragged down by them or depressed by them or God hates me or any of that other crap that we tell ourselves. I realize we're always evolving. We're always evolving. And this is an opportunity for me to say, okay, something else is coming in. What is it? And I will sit and be with it and know that as long as I do that, the light will stay and I don't have to go through that darkness, because darkness comes when we choose to deny it as well.
Okay, and that's very well put. For you, when you start to say that you were always from very young attacked, what do you mean by that as far as spiritual warfare? What do you mean that you've always been attacked from a child?
Attached or attacked?
Attacked. As far as you said, the dark side has always been after you from the time you were young.
Yes. Well, because the dark side doesn't go after people who sit on the couch and watch TV, do drugs, and drink alcohol. They already got them. They already got them. Okay? They go after people like me who say, screw you, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm in the light. I'm going to profess being in the light. And because I'm a very influential person, because I know how to reach people, that's what they wanted. They wanted to get me back into the dark side to bring more followers, so to speak, to them. And I refused to do it. So I've dealt with a lot of darkness. I've had a lot of attacks. I know how to take spells off of people and detach dark entities and things like that. I learned how to do all that. And the thing is that when you're being attacked, and you know you're being attacked, but the world thinks you're crazy, and they will just assume give you drugs and institutionalize you because you're crazy. But the minute I can get somebody on my side to believe it, the dark will dissipate. So when they say that when two or more are gathered in my name, the darkness disappears, that is a truth. That is the truth.
How old were you when you started receiving these downloads or these visions from the divine?
I have been seeing things my entire life. I used to play in my grandmother's bedroom that was full of light and full of angels. And I was a little kid. And when I was 16 is when I got the first message, because it was the very first meditation I ever did, because I thought people could do what I did. I really did, and discovered nobody does what I do. And so when Spirit came to me and handed me I always say it's the rod and the staff, and it was handed to me because I was shepherding the people home. But what I really received was the globe and the scepter, which means Christ consciousness. And so I think the message that I've been receiving now is more going into the Christ consciousness because of the work I've done. But when Spirit handed me that at that meditation, and I told them they were crazy, I was not going to change the world, they had the wrong person because I was suicidal. So, but what that did for me at that moment was there's something else out there. And this is in the 70s when I went through this, and the light that was not there on the planet like this. This was new knowledge, in my opinion. And so I figured this was the sign of hope for me to look to see what else was there. And that's what started me on the journey of my awakening, of studying Eastern and Western philosophies, going to the School of Metaphysics, learning about numerology, Akashic records, past life regressions, healing, all that kind of stuff. It was my journey into understanding what the esoteric was, and the people that I had around me during that period of time. It was natural for me to find them, but it wasn't a natural thing. When I look back now, it's like, how did I find these people? And it was because I was guided to them. Because people used to say to me, thank you for being here. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're smarter than I am, and you know more than I do. But that wasn't the purpose. What they were saying is that they recognized who I was. I just didn't see it yet. And so people outside were seeing it and they said, you'll never find your teacher because you are the teacher. But I don't know anything. You're the teacher. So I had to trust that. And that's why I was learning all the things I was learning in the process.
So you really feel that your calling from God was to actually help others also on their spiritual journey. And it's interesting what you said, because obviously, like in the 70s, yeah, there was no Google. It wasn't as easy to get this information, like we can get it today. So you really were receiving all of these, I guess you would say like signs just to find people around. Where were you finding them, around the way, or?
They just appeared. And I think the biggest one that got me the most, that I'm starting to understand more, is, and they erased this from my consciousness or put it to sleep for a very long time, was I'm on the Council of Nine. And that is and they are about the ascension process with the earth. And I was also aware of the Brotherhood of the White Light, which those are two things that nobody ever seems to know about or talked about. And I'm 20 years old. Nobody knows anything about this. And yet here I am talking about it. And then it just went silent. Like I was around this, because these are very secret cults, so to speak. And they're not cults. These are higher celestial beings working for the ascension of the earth. So I was taking my information from them. And what I did on some of it was, I have been preparing the earth for this ascension process, and I was invisible because that's how they operate. And I liked operating invisibly because it made me safe. And that's what I wanted. And then they asked me to come out in 2017, and it was like, oh, I don't think so. No, I'm going to die. I've always died. I'm not coming out. Go jump in the lake. And yet I've come out. Because what I just realized in the last week is that spiritual knowledge is not existent on this planet. And it's been, because I've been asking, what's wrong with this? What's going on? And the message was given to me that the spiritual light and awareness is not here. And that's what I'm bringing in. So that's why I stand in the doorway. That's why I'm between two dimensions. And I have people that I'll bring it in. And then that's why they told me I was going to write a new language. It's not a new language. It's a language to reach the younger generations. Because you speak differently than I do. Because to me, this is normal and natural. And my generation is aware of a lot of this. Not all of them, but a lot. But so that's what this is about, is to bring the language down to the younger generations, because they're searching, but they don't know what they're searching for, and they don't know what questions to ask. They just feel things, but they are not aware of it. So that's what I'm trying to do now, is really bring the simplicity of opening the door, because I have everything I have ever done in my life, I have still to this day. I've just evolved.
So some people, when they come on, they might be like, whoa, what are we talking about? All right, let's slow it down a bit. So
Okay.
Let's go back to the Christ consciousness and the ascension of the earth. First, let's break it down, explaining what's going on right now, or what has been happening, at least following up to now, with the earth and the energy and the Christ consciousness.
Okay. Well, we are in an ascension process, and for about 30 years, the doorway of the 1111 was open. Now, I've always wondered what that meant, because I was born at 11:11 p.m. So I am the doorway. And so I was very much involved in the doorway of the 1111, and this was where we were bringing all of the earth and the inhabitants up into vibrational frequencies to where we are today. That doorway closed in December of last year. The separation is happening. We are black, we are white. There's no more gray. So you are either going to ascend, and in through that ascension process, there is another earth that's out there. And it's been found by science that there's another world like the earth out there. But this, for those who choose to go into the ascension process, and you choose yourself, this is not anything else, and you have to demonstrate that you are making those changes into your own personal evolution, because we're all on different tracks. So it's your intent. And if that happens, then we stay on this earth because she sheds the old skin and we are here. And those who choose not to be here, that are into, the corporate greed, the sex trafficking, violence, murder, all of that stuff, they get to go over on the other planet and continue their growth in their evolution, because where they are is where they need to be. But they're not going to interfere with those of us who are choosing to ascend. That's what's happening. So that means that as we start that ascension process, whoever, like the people that I call them the light workers. I'm a way shower. I understand the difference now, but I was a light worker for a very long time, but now I'm showing the way. And so that's where the Christ consciousness starts coming in, because you have more of a defined, and every single person can do this. Every person on this planet can do that, because we are all part of the Christ consciousness. We are all part of God in the whole universe of everything. So it's not that I'm special or you're special, or it has nothing to do with that. There's no judgment. It's how you choose to look at it. So as we ascend, because I'm sitting here going into higher realms, because there is such a diverse of the beginning waking up people and the people that are right there that don't know what's happening to them. So I'm learning how to operate and manage higher dimensional frequencies, and you will never do that through your mind. This is all through your heart. So when I say that we have to open our hearts, we have to open our hearts. We have to start feeling and thinking, what is this emotion? Because we just shove our emotions under the table. Well, that doesn't feel good. I don't want to feel it. Well, that's not how you grow and evolve. We have to open the heart and just say, well, I only want to feel love and I don't want to feel this. Well, you haven't opened your heart, because you feel all of them. And the question I have for you is, when do you stop judging your emotions? Because it's all about your judgment of the emotion. When do you take responsibility for you?
It's interesting you mentioned that process really became more definite after December. So, because one of the biggest awakenings that I had, I think, started precisely in the month of January, when they were saying that there was some kind of timeline shift. Now, I'm from 1984. And I have a theory that this is the theory, that a lot of the children that were born coming into the 80s and 90s are souls that have come to aid in the awakening or ascension process. Do you believe that?
Yes, but they're asleep.
That's the thing. How do they manage in this situation where now we have to really be clear if we're going to stay in the 3D or we're going to the 5D?
They have to make a decision. That's all I can say, is they have to make a decision on this, because I'm really working on trying to figure out how to reach them, because 90% of me just wants to slap them awake, because they're so asleep and they have entitlement issues, and they think they're above the rest of the world, and they're not. They have no spiritual awareness whatsoever. They're lost on this third dimensional planet, and they're getting caught up in it. And yes, they're angry, and I get that. But I don't know what I can do. Right now, I keep asking, what is it I can do to help them to wake up? Because I am working with 40s and 30-year-olds a lot right now, the ones that are awake. And they even say, I can't tolerate my generation either, because they're feeling the same way that I feel, but they know that I'm bringing in knowledge that it's like, I've never heard this before. I'm like, really? This is so common sense to me. So I'm not dumbing anything down. And what I'm trying to do is find their language to speak into their language. And I need help with that, because I'm getting some of it. I haven't got it all yet. And every time I get something new, when I go on my podcast, I talk about it to try to reach them. So yeah, it's very challenging. It's very challenging right now in how to wake them up. And I think the only way to do that is have people like us that are on podcasts, that are doing podcasts to help get the message out, because the message is getting out there. It's just, we are really at a very, very, very critical time, because the world will flip next year. And there's a sign that I got to see that last week. And if I get one more person, the triple braided cord that comes in, that third person will cause the flip, because two of us have already joined forces. And it was a monumental shift for both her and I in our conversation. And Spirit the next day showed me there's one more person coming in, and it will be monumental when it happens. And it's not a bad thing. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's a good thing. And you may not recognize it when it happens either, but I will.
Well, the thing is, as far as, like you said, the people being asleep, I also feel like, obviously, the enemy is doing all it can do to kind of keep that going on, so that, they're not able to stop the distractions. They're not able to regulate their emotions. And I think it's getting more like severe. Like, I think it's the attack is, because I feel like, the enemy already knows their time is up. They know, and they're just hanging on by a hair. And the attacks are getting a little bit more aggressive. So as far as people who are now in that moment where they're starting to wake up, let's talk about the ones that are starting to wake up, but now they are feeling the attack, the spiritual attack. How did you maneuver that? Because I know now you said that you've cleared that out of your I guess your energy, that that no one can really come at you the same way as in the past. How do people who are awakening and that they're still feeling attacks from the dark side maneuver that?
Find people who have been through it. I mean, really, truly, and you will know when somebody's been through it by the way they speak about it, and ask the questions, because a lot of people say, well, I can do this and this and this, and they're liars. There's a lot of fraud out there in the so-called light world, and there always has been, but this is even more prominent now than ever before. But if you're speaking from your heart and you're speaking from what you've experienced, you will resonate with it. And that's when you know. So when I was battling this, and even though I had partners, they didn't fully understand my battle, but I kept asking God for help. Please help me, please help me, please help me. What is this? And they would I would always get the answers, but I had to be really asking for help, because I wanted to do a lot of this on my own as much as I could, because I already thought I was crazy. So I really didn't want to perpetuate my own craziness. But then when you're like on your knees is when you ask for help. And that's when I did. And then I had a lot of friends that were in this spiritual movement. And even though they never shared some of their stories, when I was in it, they would say, this is what happened. This is check this, do this, do this. And it would be like everything they said was right there. I mean, it was just like, oh my God. So they knew. And that was the thing, is you've got to surround yourself with people, or reach out to people if you need help. A light worker is going to help you. They're not going to do everything for free, but they will help you get out of a crisis situation, or at least I will do that, because nobody should be suffering. Nobody should be hurting. And it can kill you. It can kill you, because you will find a way to end it for you, but it's really the dark side doing it. So my thing is get support, go to church. I don't care, whatever that is, a synagogue, whatever it is for you, because that's where you will find the most relief, and you will find the most stillness in your heart. And that's what I did in the very, very, very beginning, because I hadn't really anchored in the total spiritual side, but my Catholic upbringing always brought me back to where I needed to come back to find my way to the light.
Yeah, because I think, like I've always said, I always like to hear people's experiences. And I mean, you might have some people who are Christian and they might not like this topic or the way you phrase it. But for some reason, I understand what you're saying. And there will be people, depending on where they are in their awakening, that it resonates with them. So I feel it's important to have this information there. So yes, you grew up in a Catholic church, but for example, at the same time, you're aware of all of these other things that are involved with the frequency, with the vibration, and trying to, as you said, focus on your heart in order to ascend. Now, this is something that, I guess it's very clear. We know that we have all of our energy points, but could you give an example of how we can begin to focus more on our heart energy center to ascend? As far as like things that we need to start letting go of, or ideas or things we can do.
You have to be present. That's the main thing. You have to be present and you have to be conscious. Yes, we are habitual creatures. That is who we are by design on a human level. But it's about being conscious. So if you're walking around, everything's wonderful, and all of a sudden you go down in the dumps and you're like, what just happened? Instead of just stuffing it, burying it, pushing it aside because I don't want to feel it, sit with it and be with it and ask what just happened, because 1 minute I'm here and now I'm here. And you can have a panic attack, you could be scared, you could be whatever it is, because when your energy shifts that quickly, something just happened. And my suggestion, and I do this to myself all the time, is I'll sit, because I go into kind of thing, like the Tasmanian devil, because I'm freaked out. And it's like, okay, breathe. First of all, you need to breathe. So I'll sit down and I will breathe through it. And then it's like, what just happened? And then I will get clarity. Now, it doesn't always happen right away. Sometimes it takes days, but I keep the thought in my head and I acknowledge the feeling. It's like, okay, I feel you, but I'm going back here to stay in my heart space, to know that I'm still safe. Because sometimes when we're moving and evolving, our ego comes in and says, oh, no, 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 I'm afraid. No. And I mean double no. And I'm going to make you feel like you're having a heart attack to stop you. That's how afraid I am. And that's what our egos will do. I mean, I get panic attacks to this day. I get panic attacks. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And it's like, I breathe. I and the Father are one. And then it's like, wow, I must be getting ready to shift into another dimensional frequency because I wouldn't have that panic attack. And then I tell my ego, you're not going to die. You're coming along. You're just getting in the back seat and Spirit's driving the bus. You're coming along for the ride.
Right. Because like, I don't get panic attacks anymore. And I really used to have really bad anxiety, but I started to meditate. I always tell that story, and it calmed down tremendously. What I was asking you also was more like, sometimes people say you have to speak certain things over yourself, affirmation, scripture, whatever it may take, or gratitude, having certain, like, is there a way to focus it? Because I mean, what works for me sometimes, if I'm really upset or something like this, and I do the same thing, I take a breath and I just try to be grateful. I try to remember and be thankful for what I have and look as much as I can to thoughts that are going to evoke my heart, like into that happiness, or, like love. Yeah. I would say loving vibration. Do you think that is like a first tactic or something like this?
Totally do. I totally do. Because gratitude is what helped me to come back from my dark side too. When I didn't think I had anything else, I was grateful for that I was back in Colorado the next day. Thank you for the blue skies. And then my life changed dramatically from there. I think when you have a morning practice, and I think this is really critical, is what do you want your day to look like? Now, granted, your day's going to do what your day's going to do, but you still have control of how you feel throughout your day. And I think when you start with a meditation or exercise, a walk, yoga, whatever it is, all that's going to set a tone because you're getting rid of whatever angst may be in the body. You're getting the good endorphins going off in your brain that's getting the tone going. So when crap does happen, you can get back into center very, very quickly. And the next question that I would, instead of thinking what's wrong with me, start asking, what am I here to learn? What am I learning from whatever this event, this emotion is? Change the way you're thinking about it, because usually it's something triggered that caused the reaction. So instead of saying, because I used to be the victim, God doesn't like me, God's mad at me, that is so far from the truth. And once I said, okay, what am I here? What do I need to learn from this? What is it that I'm not seeing? And allow different questions to come in. And then if you're feeling something, because I could feel everything, but I didn't know what I was feeling. And I would say, okay, what is this emotion? Because that was the only way I knew how to deal with it, is what is this feeling? Well, it feels like I'm feeling jealous. Well, why are you feeling jealous? Well, because they have this and I don't have this. But are you really jealous about that? No, not really. I want it. Well, what do you need to do to get to it? So it was like just really having a dialogue with yourself and understanding emotions, because people say you have such a handle on your emotions. I said, and it was a lifetime to learn what I felt. Because I still will have emotions and it's like, okay, what is this about? What am I feeling? Where did it come from? And usually it's that I did something that triggered something, and it's just a limiting belief. It's all it is, to bring light into something that's still a little dense inside of me. So I look at it as a positive instead of a negative now.
Yeah, I mean, I before, when Esther Hicks was very, very popular and I was really learning about this, and I remember that that's kind of like what she would say is like, it's okay, even if you're going into an emotion that is not the best emotion, but the idea is to reflect on it, because I still do that also. Like I'll say like, how mad am I? Am I really that mad? Or what am I feeling? I do that. One thing that you said that was interesting is, yeah, when you wake up in the morning, I mean, like you said, it could be meditation. I do prayer, whatever, because I say I don't want to punch anyone in the face. So I just make sure. I always say that with the, like, if I'm praying, if in my case, I'll be like, well, this is helping me so that later it helps me in terms of my reaction to the problem. So you are in control of how you're going to react to whatever is thrown in your path for that day. But obviously you try to make an affirmation for the day to have a good day. But in the case that things happen, you at least know that you've started off by consciously deciding, like, I'm going to make sure that I just go with the flow, or just remain calm, or something like this. I want to talk to you about angels, because I know you've discussed this, and like, I'm also Catholic, and I always also pray a lot to Saint Michael, the Archangel. And I don't know, maybe it's me, but I always feel that he's there with me. That's me. I don't know how to explain to you how, but I feel like he also guards me. And I also pray a lot from the time I was young for his protection, because I realized that obviously from the time I was young, I've always dealt with a lot of spiritual warfare. And I believe in that the archangels are sent by God to obviously be there sometimes for us, especially when it's getting really into the thick of it. You know what I mean? I mean, we can try our best and we're also calling on God, but there are times that I think that, we need a little bit more of a divine protection. Tell me a little bit how it functions and everyone's ability. Can anyone just call on angels or to come and help them? Can you talk about that?
Yep. The angels can't do anything unless you ask. They are forbidden to interfere in any way, shape, or form. That's why you have to ask. I learned to ask for everything, and I don't care how small and stupid and human it is, I will ask. Because if it's supposed to be for me, it'll be there. And my questions, because I will usually ask questions when I go to sleep at night, so I wake up with the answers, and a lot of times, right as I'm waking up, the answer just drops in. And it's effective for me, because you're in that quiet stillness. You're putting a question out there so it can go out into the ethers, and then it comes back in the morning. And if you're supposed to have it, it will be there. I know that there were times when I would feel like so much frustration and anger. And I remember when I was in Nevada and my mother was having a lot of health issues, and I was very, very angry, and I didn't have any money. And my partner and I were like, we were 2 weeks behind on our rent. We didn't have a job. I mean, all this stuff. And it was like this intense fear and anger and what the hell am I doing wrong? None of that was true. And I was just railing. And I mean, I was railing at the Archangel Michael, because he was the one that was so close at that moment in time for me. And he's laughing. And I went down the rabbit hole of, this is not funny. You get your butt down here and you find out. And I was doing one of those things to him, and he's laughing, and I could see him just belly laughing, holding his gut, kind of like how John Travolta was in the Archangel Michael movie. That is so Michael, just wrong hair color, but that would be so Michael coming into embodiment. And then as he kept laughing, it dawned on me, I need to lighten up. I need to laugh. I need to play. The minute I did that, I found a job, and our rent was current, and we were able to pay the next month's rent. Both my partner and I got a job. But it was because I was holding on so tightly of what was wrong that once, and all Michael did was laugh to show me, you got to play. And that's the one message the angels will always tell you to do. And when they came back in my life, I was doing ballroom dancing, and they came back because I was playing, I was having fun, I was doing something that made my heart sing. When you do that, I guarantee you the angels will be right there and they will assist you. But as long as you hold on to your stuff and you're angry and bitter and you're not going to move, you're not going to hear them, because you have to move your vibrational frequency to a higher plane for the answer to come in. And if you're willing to do that, I promise you the angels will be there. And if you want to know who's there, just ask their name. Just say, hello, what's your name? And you'll get scared. I promise you will be scared the first time or two when you hear that, because it's so new. But when you do that, you've just invited them in, and you just sparked the light within you to start growing.
Yeah, and I've heard of this, and that's why I think it's very important to speak it out, like to invoke them. You ask God, that's what I always do now when I am praying. I always say, everyone who's in the kingdom of God, every ancestor, every angel, every saint who wants to fight with me, I'm giving you permission, even and I also do this for dream characters, because I have a lot of vivid dreams, and I have a lot of situations where sometimes I eat in dreams. So I will even say, dream characters, when they're giving me their hints, make sure I don't eat in the dreams. And I know it sounds ridiculous because some people don't believe in this, but I've gotten even some tips and some things that would seem out of this world, like messages given to me just by doing this. So that does work.
Very much so. Very much so. And, you have to test it, and you test as much as you can handle at that time. And the more you can handle, the more they will give you. I promise you that. Because they're looking for people like us to help them.
Tell me a bit about, because one of the things that I want to work on is, which I think is just is an additive. I don't know if it's the same as a light worker, but I always ask also to have the ability to help people heal, either with my vibration, just being in their presence, because I know you can't save everyone, but just being in their presence. And also, if you put your hands on your children and you speak over them and things like this, I always ask to have that ability, and also to be able to just have a very strong intuition. How did you, well, I know obviously sometimes it's from birth, and I would imagine from what you told me that sounds like something that you were born with. Did you do anything else as far as like dieting or being in the sun or anything extra, like changing your diet, in other words, like to lift your vibration or doing anything? You didn't do all of that, like some people have suggested?
I understand what they say about that. And when you like become a vegetarian or a breatharian or whatever, I get all that. Okay. Except for the thing is you're denying the body. Our bodies still need nourishment, whatever that is. I was going to become a full-fledged vegetarian and I can't. I'm a type O. I need to have protein. And so I had to find alternate. So I could never get off. I never got off of fish and poultry because I couldn't. And I did. I became anemic the first time I did it at like 15 years old. I became anemic. So, and I had to take liquid iron to get my body back. And so I gave up on that. And then when I tried it again in my 30s, and I told my body, I said, I will keep eating this. And if you need me to go back to eating meat, I will do that. So I had to bring your body, you have to bring your body into it. You have to. And even though I may have been born with, my intuition is so vast, I will never understand and comprehend the vastness of my intuition, as I was told. It didn't matter. I still had to learn to trust it. And we all have to learn to trust that quiet, still voice, because it's for you. It's not for anyone else. And I remember the day that I realized, I was talking to a friend of mine and he was saying, well, I'm getting this blah, 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 blah. And I just sat there and I listened to him and I realized I don't have to go to a medium. I don't have to be a medium. We all have that voice. And who am I to say you're right or wrong? And so I learned it was very blatant. And so that's what I say. I mean, if you want to try to do all these things, and trust me, I tried all of them. And what I came down to it, as long as I am in alignment with me and what my body needs, because our body is part of our consciousness. We created our body. It's the vessel that carries the spirit. If it's sick, trust me, you don't care about anything else other than getting well. So you do what feels right to you. So if you feel like you want to have a big, fat, juicy hamburger, go for it. If you feel like I want to just be a fruits and vegetable kind of person, go for it. But just listen to your body. That's what I always say, because you know you. No one else knows you like you. And so when you start trusting your ability and you start trusting all of that, then that intuition gets stronger and stronger the more you listen to it. Because you're going to start having a comparison. Oh, I trusted this and this all this good stuff happened. I decided not to listen to it, and then all this so-called bad stuff happened. I mean, these are what you're going to do. You're going to learn your boundaries that way. So try whatever you want, but I think a bunch of it, there's truth in it. But I think a lot of it's a bunch of hooey at the same time, because my truth is I'm going to eat what I want to eat. I mean, I still eat chocolate and junk food. And I know some of the most wisest people on the planet are big sugar addicts. And it's because of what the energy we deal with. It's like we have to we're trying to keep it up, and sugar keeps our energy vibration up that way, even though it's bad for our body. But what it does for us to help hold that energy until we can get acclimated, that's what we do. Think about why you're doing what you're doing. Just don't react to it. That's all I say. Be present. Always be present.
Yeah, and let me tell you, chocolate can make a day that feels horrible feel so good again. So I don't knock that at all. The last question I'm going to ask you, as far as that whole concept of building your intuition, your work speaks to the importance of honoring the spiritual process without rushing, right? Because sometimes, you want it so bad, you want to be here, you want to be like, I mean, I guess if you want to be a light worker, or for me, like if I want to be healing or feeling that like I'm helping really fast, but still I know that I have work to do. What do you say to someone who wants to like build their intuition faster than maybe than I guess might be natural?
Well, good luck with that. That's the first thing. And you better be prepared for your world to fall apart in a moment, because that's what will happen. And I remember when I was around 16, 17 years old, and it was at the Edgar Cayce place that I was at. And this lady's son had, he from his middle of his forearm was gone. He didn't have a right hand. And he wanted to know, and he wanted to know, and he wanted to know, and he was angry. And his mother kept saying, wait until the time is right. Well, he didn't want to, so he found out that he killed people, chopped their heads off. And so this lifetime, he decided not to have the hand because it was such a natural thing for him to do. And she said it took him into a tailspin for years because that was so hard to understand and comprehend. And I'm like, yeah, I get that one. I just discovered I have spent my whole life trying to understand what happened to me. What I thought was 8 was actually 11 of what changed in my life to go down the road that I went down. And I couldn't get past the block for nothing in the world. I am past that block, and thank God I did not know what it was until I learned it, because I would never have been able to handle it. I could barely handle it now because it was just tears and tears and tears and so much stuff of why did I do this and so on and so forth. But what I had to do before I remembered, I had to be grateful that I created the life that I created. Even though it sucked to be me and I swore up and down I would never do this to myself. And everything I did to myself. I chose to do it, and thank God. And the moment that I realized that is when that block of what changed my life happened. And it was so painful and guttural at that moment. And then the anger that came up with it as well, aside from the tears and the releasing and everything else. When I faced that and I could look at it in a different light, because I was aware enough spiritually and enlightened enough to understand that I chose this life, I could see why I chose the life that I did, because I would never have the reach that I will have if it wasn't for that. But I had to be at peace with my life before I could see what caused what I decided to do. Because this was a mutual thing with my family. This was not just they did it to me kind of thing. This was a mutual understanding. And even though I saw it, it was still painful. It still hurt. I was still angry, not bitter, still angry. And then I came in and just was like, well, how did this weave through your life? And then you start seeing that, and then the bigger picture comes even more. That's why I say just trust the process. You can always have it in the back of your mind. You can always know this is something you want to know when you're ready. Because even when you think you're ready, you may not be ready.
It's like God's divine timing, but it's that kind of thing that, like, you ask yourself, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And maybe it's only after everything that has, transpired that you can look back and say, like, oh, I get it now. And if you didn't go through certain situations, you wouldn't have the wisdom, you wouldn't have, I guess you could just say the maturity spiritually to understand the life the way it is now, right? Would you say that something similar?
Precisely. Yeah. I mean, you're the one who guided it. You're the one who created this life. Nobody did it. God didn't do this to you. You did it for you. This is what you chose to learn. And your spirit is guiding you. So even if we don't know, it's okay, because I remember asking, and this is very profound, and I hope your listeners really understand what I'm about to say here. When I was getting a divorce, and because how many times did we say, if I only knew, if I only knew, if I only knew, I would do things differently. Well, no, you don't want to know anything. You truly don't. Because when I was getting a divorce, I asked Spirit to know what was going on every step of the way. And I made a promise that I would not interfere with the outcome. Now, I was married for life, and I had to battle that, and I had to become an observer and watch. And my heart broke more than I could ever tell anyone how badly my heart broke, how much I wanted to manipulate the circumstance and change it. And I said no, and I had to sit there. So I tortured myself. And thank God I did. And so when we don't know, it's a good thing, because we are manipulators and we will try to control it. And the only thing that kept coming in my mind during that period of time was, if I manipulate this, what am I doing to my future? And I wanted to make sure I was doing what I wanted, not what my human heartbreaking self wanted? What was my higher self wanting? So I suffered through it.
That's like that idea, like if you change the timeline in any way, and I really believe that. You know why? Because I feel like that's that whole thing, especially for me in my experiences with dreams and having encounters with like dream characters. I always would say, but if they know, why don't they just tell me? And I always said, it's as if they cannot be involved until you ask for it. So it's like there's like some kind of spiritual law then in that case, that there can be no interference.
Right. And they did that for me. But see, I also know that I didn't know this then, that I had a lot of special dispensation, that anything that I ever asked for that I really needed when I was in this really gut-wrenching place, people or events or angels or whatever appeared in my life that would normally never happen. But I received so much special dispensation because of the life that I chose and because of the mission that I'm on, that God gave that to me. No, it never stayed long, but it was enough of a retrieval to keep me moving forward. And so when I asked about this with my marriage falling apart, hardest thing I ever did is not something spirit would ever do. I guarantee you they would not normally just give this to somebody. And then they brought in somebody that I was told that if you promise not to kill each other, okay, because there was such a hate there that it took everything not to kill somebody and all I wanted to do was help her. You know what I mean? It was like so much around my ex-husband and making me be a bigger person, even though he made me a small person. I had to rise above it. And I made so many promises during that relationship to God of not doing what I would normally do. And I think that's why so much was given to me, was because I kept saying, there's got to be a better reason, a bigger reason. And even though, because, you know, there was that angst of past lives of wanting to kill somebody, literally wanting to kill him, because we had done this back and forth to each other for years. So when you start getting insights of that kind of stuff, listen to those crazy thoughts in your head, because they're real. I saw my lifetimes with him and his daughter and me, and the dynamics between the three of us. And it was not pleasant. And I was always the one falling victim to it. And I had a lifetime. I could have made the choice to kill her like I was going to. No, but you know, it was that, but that whatever that lifetime was, that was so gut-wrenching hatred. And what did I do? I just loved on her as much as I could, but the inside war was going on and I just transcended it. Because in this lifetime, I loved her.
Like all of these experiences, especially related to past lives, as we are ascending into the 5D, which is interesting because I've had some dreams that did not feel like dreams. Do you think that we in general are going to start remembering a lot of our past lives? Are they going to pop up more?
Yes, definitely. Because I think as you ascend and move higher into your vibrational frequency, you start seeing it, because you're actually piercing a veil. You're piercing your particular timelines, your veils, that kind of thing. Because people are like, well, how do you know so much about your past lives? I don't know. I just know. And it's always when something is coming up or I'm in an angst about something, they just seem to, it's like it just drops into my brain and I'm watching a movie. And it explains like everything I'm feeling. It makes it understand. And then I sit back and I watch the dynamics of whatever's unfolding. And it's like, okay, you can now either stay on the karmic wheel and perpetuate this another lifetime and see if you're going to get through it, or do you break the karmic wheel? I decided I'm not coming back, so I'm going to break the karmic wheels. And it's hard. It really is hard, because those emotions we have are intense.
Because I do believe that we are on different timelines right now as we speak, in different versions of ourselves. The best thing that we can do to help all of the other versions of ourselves is ascend. No, lift up your vibration as much as possible, and it trickles down and helps everyone else. Or
yep, it does.
But every other aspect of ourselves.
Yes, because if you change something in this timeline, you're actually changing everything in your timelines. And I've proven that. So, and then I also broke all of my timelines in 2017, and I didn't know what it meant until now. My father had to die for a lot of this awakening happening for me, because he had anchored me in and shadowed me so much that now I'm starting to soar. And it's challenging. I love it, but it's challenging because the 3D world is really hard to be in when you're soaring. So I'm learning how to navigate some of this right now, but it's exciting. I'm not afraid at all. It's just wow is all I can say is, and then don't put me out in the real world because I get cranky.
Well, I really hope that from here forward, it just gets better, because I really do have a lot of hope for the earth. And I do feel that despite it all, there's no other choice but to go up, at least for those of us that want to go up. And we're going to experience that regardless, because that's what we are going to be, I guess, shining out from the inside out, right? Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kathleen. Thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me. For those wanting to learn more about Kathleen's work, you can find the links in the podcast below, especially to her book. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to sacredmindshift.com so you never miss an exciting event or another discussion. And God bless you. Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Thank you so much, Dahlia. I really enjoyed our conversation today.